Good afternoon and welcome to DKW, and today we're going to be discussing the topic of getting out of the ghetto. Why are more and more young people turning to a life of crime, and how can we inspire them not to? We're going to be discussing this topic along with special guest Mark Prince, who'll be talking about what he does to keep youths on the straight and narrow. But let's find out what else is coming up on today's show. Getting out of the ghetto, a very deep topic today that we're going to be discussing on today's show. And I'm not alone. In the studio we have Kimberly.
Hi, Cherie.
Melissa.
Hello.
And our lovely Lisa.
Hi.
Gave you a bit of extra prompts there. Sorry, I didn't mean to. You guys are also very lovely.
I was like,
well, let me quickly correct that.
Melissa.
Marvellous Melissa and very cute Kimmy. There you go. So getting out of the ghetto, a very strong subject. Yeah. What comes to your mind straight away when you hear that?
Young people, gangs, poverty.
Yeah, we're listening like the gang culture and stuff like that, because I think some people kind of see it as that is the only way to get out for not everybody, but they see that as a way to get out because there's nothing else to do.
Gosh, very, very deep indeed. Let's hear what the streets have to say when Jennifer Long went to interview people.
What do you believe makes young people get into gangs?
Into gangs? Well, basically, I come from quite a small town in Kent called Faversham, and I think, seriously, people get in gangs literally because of boredom. You get people as young as like 13 getting into gangs because there's nothing else to do for them.
Sometimes like music artists, like say if they see like an artist on YouTube who's kind of representing the gang culture, then they sort of kind of like to follow that whole trend. But like, for example, they watch someone like, say, like a football player, then they'll see kind of more the positive side to life. So
they find safety in being in numbers nowadays. Like in my time, you could just walk the streets, but nowadays it's just peer pressure.
Why do you think young people turn to crime?
I think personally they turn to crime because it's like, it can be sort of environmental factors, say if they're like with like the wrong people and the wrong people who are like influencing around them. But I think if, say for example, like people live on like council estates, if they're like more youth clubs and kind of more stuff they can get exposed to, then I think they'll be out of this whole crime palaver. So
I think they turn to crime maybe because of peer pressure, going around with other youngsters having fancy shoes and that. That's about it, just peer pressure.
And have you ever been intimidated by a young group of people?
Young group of people?
Yeah, like a young group of a gang, or just young people surrounding you, anything like that?
Not really, to be honest. No, I think it's all about using your common sense. I mean, it's like if you do see like a group of people in the street, it's always best to avoid them, just in case you do come across the wrong kind of people and they do sort of like start on you for no reason. So I think it's all about using your common sense. That's what the brain's for.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I mean, when I lived in Manchester, I almost got pickpocketed, which was a really weird experience. But obviously, it never happened. I was quite lucky. I avoided that situation. But yeah, I've been intimidated by gangs, especially when there's obviously you're walking by yourself and there's a big group of them. You don't really know what to do at the time. So just think on the spot.
Have you ever been intimidated by a group of young people?
No, touch wood, not at all. No, I do try to associate with them a little bit, but yeah.
That was Jennifer Long. Thank you so much for those. Now, ladies, have you ever felt intimidated by a group of young people?
Not really. Personally, no. I can understand why you would, but I think because I kind of came from that, so because of that, I not really know.
I think it depends on the situation, because when I've been out on the street, hasn't been an issue. But in my last job, when I went into one of my buildings, and I did come across two young guys who were proceeding to roll up 2 joints to smoke them in the communal areas where they shouldn't have been in the building anyway. And when I did challenge them, as in not like, you know, get out of my building kind of thing, but as in like, why, you know, guys, please, you need to leave, because they'd left a mess on the floor as well. And one of them was fine, said, yep, we'll leave. The other one was like, if certain mans was here, you wouldn't be talking to us like this. And I was like, okay. And then just kind of like tried to like leave, but because that was intimidating. But of course, you know, out on the street, I haven't actually felt that.
How about you, Kimmy, coming from down south?
I think for me, because I have a teenage son, it kind of makes it a little bit different. I don't feel intimidated by them because I have a teenage son, he's got friends, and
Kind of feel a bit protected by them, would you say?
I feel a little bit more, I feel like I'm a little bit understanding because I'm coming from a mother's point of view. I think if I was a younger person, I might feel intimidated.
Okay, it's
but as
interesting.
an adult, no. And I think it's a case of sometimes it's like using your common sense. Because I think with a lot of them, it's about respect and how they treat each other. So I'm not going to put myself in a situation where I'm going to disrespect them in front or intimidate them. I've never had to do that challenging. So, and I've never been in that situation where I felt afraid. But if I've seen them in a group, I don't feel
intimidated.
I don't.
Funny enough, I feel the same. It's probably because of what Melissa said. We grew up in Hackney, and you know, many people that used to come down to where we live would be like, "Oh my gosh, are you not scared of them?" Like, we groups of boys or girls together, and we're just like, well, it's so normal for us. And it's kind of like, if you don't mess with them, they're not going to mess with you.
Exactly.
So that's it. Having said that, however, I remember when I used to go to school, secondary school, I would never like to sit on top of the bus, because there'd be the whole group of, you know, gangs of people, and they would be like smoking or being rude or swearing, and they would literally pick on people, and it was known for that. They'd throw things at people, and if they looked at you funny, or, you know, those guys that kind of go psst, psst, and if you did not respond to them, then you'd kind of be the target. So I would just stay downstairs. So I used to feel very intimidated. I don't know how it is now.
I was going to say, I might have been one of those
did.
ones sitting at the top of the bus. Not picking on people, but yeah.
Maybe not smoking.
You're the victim.
So yeah.
So you guys were the gangbangers, were you? All right then, let's play our traditional red and green card game. I'm going to throw some questions at you and just get a bit deeper into your minds about this topic. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
Go for it.
If you agree, if you say that it's yes, then you go for green. If it's like no, then you go for red. Okay? Ready? Do you think that courts are too soft on young offenders? Green for yes, red for no.
Tricky, isn't it?
I'm giving them 5 seconds to answer.
Do I think
5,
that
4, 3, 2, 1. Can I have your answer? Oh, okay, Kim goes for green. Okay, one of the ladies have said red. Why?
Go on, Lisa.
Why no?
Because sometimes I don't think that there's enough done beforehand. So I don't necessarily think it's just up to the courts to discipline the kids or the young offenders for what should have been done beforehand. So I don't necessarily think it's just up to the court, which is what it seems to be left to.
Okay, Kimmy?
So
Would you
I'm saying
disagree?
yes, that
You're
I
saying
do.
yes, you think they're too soft?
It's a kind of a tricky one because you hear so many cases that sometimes you think, yeah, that really does fit the crime. But then you hear another situation where it doesn't fit the crime. So the reason why I did take a while to agree, because in my head I'm processing different cases that I've come across. And so my mind is confused because there are cases where I think, yeah, that was brilliant. But then I think, well, no, that was wrong. And I do hear of cases that sometimes where people, they should be disciplined, and they're not. They're getting away. It's all the soft options. Oh, I came from this background. I came from that. This is why I'm that. And sometimes I think people do need to take responsibilities for their actions. When you've done something wrong, you have to pay a price.
So you're kind of yes and no, aren't you? A bit from the fence. It's quite a difficult one.
It is a
quite a
tricky
difficult one. Okay, let's try another one. It's kind of going along with your one, actually. I think Lisa says, do you think that enough is being done to rehabilitate young offenders? Yes for green, red, no. So you all agree. Okay, let's hear from you. Why?
It's difficult as well, but I just don't think that enough is being done before the proverbials hit the fan, should I say? Do you know what I mean? I think that more could be done starting with at home, but also in schools. I don't know. It's kind of tricky, but I just feel like sometimes extremes happen where more could have been done beforehand. So.
Can I ask you a quick question? Because you both of you said that you were probably one of the ladies that would be, well, not ladies, the thugs that be throwing things at people or probably just swearing and that. But you came from good homes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you also were kind of in a gang, right? So what made you, what could your parent or maybe your community have done to stop you from joining a gang?
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, when I think about what led me to be in a gang, it was because at the time I was having a difficult situation at home.
Okay.
And when I went through that situation, or when I went through that period, my parents weren't actually around, and it wasn't through any fault of their own, because my father had died, and my mum was actually in another country, and the person who was my guardian, we just didn't get along. We didn't have any communication. That's the thing.
Yes.
There was no relationship there. So that was what led me to kind of, you know, finding a family with the wrong company. And you know, in school and out of school. You know, in school I was with the wrong company, but after school as well, because I didn't want to go home, I would go with them, and they would be going to the wrong places, and I would just follow them.
Gosh, it's quite deep. Okay, we've got a quick question, last one. Do you think that films and music make criminals look cool? Yes for green, red for no. Okay, once again, unanimous.
Yeah,
okay, I'll just
definitely.
leave it. Whoever wants to chip in, go ahead.
You know, I think a lot of the, you know, rappers, and I'm not blaming them necessarily for what other people do, but it's out there that it's a glamorous lifestyle. I mean, people rapping about, you know, I'm shooting this person, and at the same time I've got loads of money because I've sold loads of drugs, and that's the kind of thing that they think, yeah, that's what I want to do, because then they, you know, they're saying that they didn't have education, they didn't have good, you know, a good background, so the only thing that was available to them was to do this, to get quick money, and that's then what other people believe and kind of fuel that fantasy.
Gosh, it's very, very true. Look, we're going to be discussing this more after the break, and also we're going to be having the very inspirational Mark Prince joining us on the sofa, who'll be telling us what he's been doing to help youths stay on the straight and narrow, so stick with us. Welcome back, and today we were discussing the topic of getting out of the ghetto, and we're joined by a very special guest, Mark Prince, who is the leader of the foundation, the Cayenne Prince Foundation, and we want to hear your inspirational story. What made you set this foundation up?
It didn't even think of it anything like an inspirational story. For me, it was the worst experience and the darkest times of my life. My son I got a phone call that my son was stabbed, and that led on to me having to go into the hospital and witness seeing my son laying there, and the doctor telling me that he's tried to keep my son alive. He opened up his chest, massaged his heart. He was unable to keep my son alive, and I had to go and spend some time with my son and actually feel him go from warm to cold, watch his colour change, and leave his body. So it's a very difficult
Yes.
experience, and knowing that he was such a lovely gift from God to me and Tracy, and he listened. You know, every kid goes through his ups and downs growing up.
Yes.
Kyan was no different from any other kid, gave problems, trouble, good parenting, good
Yes.
home life,
Yes.
enabled him to see himself through that and find his way and know what he wanted to do in life. Good foundation, love, allowed him to see his goals and his purpose.
Yes.
And he went into being a footballer and a
How old
top
was you,
student.
Mark? Sorry, how old was your son, if you don't mind
My
me
son was
asking?
15 years old.
Very young.
Queen's Park Rangers spotted him probably from when he was about 13 years old, signed him, and continued to nurture his gift and his potential till the point where they saw that it was going so well that at age 15 they wanted to move him into the over 18s team because they had plans, great
Wow.
plans for his future. So we were really excited about
Yes.
all this, and me and Kyan used to sit and just hug each other and just talk about what we're going to be experiencing down the line. And
Yes.
I was just happy to see him doing so well, and just
Yes.
looking forward to the days where we sit as men, you know, mature men, and look back on how far he'd come from, you know, being a little youngster growing up, you know. And we didn't get to experience that because some guy at his school was given a lot of trouble. They expelled him. He was hanging around the school. All the children were leaving out the school one day, and he was outside the school, started a fight with one student. My son came up, saw the fight, and used to have this nature about him where he liked peace and wanted to
Defend.
not even to defend, to break it up,
Diffuse
just
the
diffuse the
situation.
situation,
Yes.
stop the fighting. Some of the young people on the scene, because there was hundreds of young people that watched this horrible scene play itself out, and very popular in school. Kyan wasn't known to have enemies or be involved in any sort of gang or
Yes.
anything, but he tried to stop the fight. The guy pulled out a knife straight away. Kyan said to him, you know, what are you doing with that? And
Yeah.
he tried to walk away, and the guy came after him. And you could see the wounds on his arm where he's tried to block himself from getting stabbed in the chest, and one of the actions went straight through, pierced his heart, and killed him on the spot. He died right there outside his school.
So how do you go from something like that, something so devastating and dark, to having the foundation?
Yeah.
A connection with your Heavenly Father, a God that's real, a God that people do not see with their own eyes, but believe in by faith. And they keep that faith despite whatever goes wrong. And, you know, I've been around a lot of parents and that's shared this type of grief and experienced this. And I always try and encourage them because this is the difficult part. And obviously, as a human being, you want revenge, you're
Yes.
angry,
Yes.
and there was that process to go through. So I couldn't have gone through that process without having a relationship with God because I needed someone to cry out to. Another human being is not going to be able to help me at a time like that, to be able to even understand what I'm going through.
Indeed. You don't know what to say.
No,
Another
you
human being
don't
doesn't
know what to say.
in
That was a
those
word I
times.
heard a lot. I don't know what to say, Prince.
Yeah.
Well, I used to say to people, I don't know what to say. What am I supposed to say to
Yeah.
you? You know, my son's gone, you don't know what to say. We both don't, so we sit in silence then. We'll both sit here and cry, you know, because that's another language in
Yes.
itself. And so that's what I used to do. But throughout this time, you know, I still felt the Spirit of God speaking to me, letting me know that He's with me. And I was going through so many deep thoughts throughout this time, and one of them was just that I don't believe my son died for no reason. There must be something I must do, but it couldn't have been about me getting revenge and killing because I couldn't see that in the God that I knew and I understood from my Bible and God being a God of love. I couldn't see revenge and me getting him back was a part of the plan.
Yes.
So I had to battle with these emotions, and I was battling through it throughout the court case, and I wanted to snap this guy's neck and I had very real visions of doing it, but it was only eating me up
Yes.
and making me bitter and horrible inside. So one day I had this experience where I just cried out to God, like, you know, you got to help me. I can't do this on my own. And something happened that day that changed the journey for me. And it was like this settee was on my back, but I didn't know. But after I cried out to God and I said, you take this, you deal with this. You show me how you're going to use and turn this situation around.
Yes.
It was almost like something just came off me and I was light. And it wasn't like the grief all disappeared, but I recognized something happened to me at that moment.
Yes.
And it materialized itself when I went into court. I could tell that I wasn't this angry guy looking at the family, looking for an excuse to, you know, do something to someone for no reason, just to get out my own feelings. And I knew something had happened. And, you know, as time went by, God just blatantly made it happen. So firstly, I would say to Chris Rogers from ITV, who were filming the documentary, Put the Knives and Guns Down, I was thinking about starting a charity and helping other kids, because I was a youth worker before my son died, and I was helping kids. But I thought, instead of being restricted by the government, council, borough's way of doing things, you know, I've engaged with kids really successfully, and I think if I could start a charity, I could build something of my own.
Nice.
And get more people like myself, like-minded, because I felt that a lot of people that done the job, it was a job to them, and I didn't think this was the kind of job that was just a job. You needed a lot of passion and care and love for young people to even be playing that part and dealing with them, because I knew I was going to come into contact with a lot of guys who carried knives, stabbed people, just like my son got stabbed. And if I didn't deal with forgiveness, how was that going to play out when I dealt with you, who had done a lot of killing and stuff like that? So in coming to God and crying out to him, letting him know that I cannot do this, but you show me that your grace is sufficient, I began to go through this process where I didn't feel so much anger towards him as time was going on, because it does take time.
Yes.
And I would go out and try to help young people. The love I shared was dispersing the anger that was in me. So I was having a fair exchange of emotions by just giving it up and letting God know, you take control of this situation. I'm not going to do what my emotions are driving me to do. I'm going to do what I feel that you see fit for me to do, because we all have a purpose in life.
Yes.
And some of us spend a lifetime trying to find out what it is.
Indeed.
And a lot of us waste our life just thinking that it's being rich, earning money, looking good. And I realised that it can't be that, because my son died at 15. He couldn't have any bank account to show how rich he was, so that can't be the mark of success.
Yes.
So what is the mark of success? And I saw that my son was leading a successful life. Why? Because he treated people well. Young people spoke about him very well, how he was caring. Young guys, complete different nationalities from all over the world would be at his school. One guy from Africa came over and was new to this country and started at my son's school. He bucked me up on the high road one day in Leighton. So the Ukraine Prince's dad, I said, yeah, he goes, please, I want to share something with you. Your son, when I came to this school, no one was speaking to me. I had no friends. Your son came up to me in the playground at London Academy, and I just stood up there alone. And he said, what are you doing standing here? He goes, I don't know anyone. He goes, forget that, come over here, join the game. He introduced him to everybody. He said, now you do. And he said that he's really grateful for that, because that was the beginning. And because Kyan was popular, he was more readily accepted, seeing now that he was Kyan's friend than he would have just trying to make friends of his own. So that showed me Kyan's nature.
Yes.
And I knew my son was a very calm, loving guy. But that opened up my mind and made me realize it was a lot greater than I even thought he was.
Because your son and even you, I mean, you're like very unique. Because to be honest with you, your story is so touching. I haven't forgotten all the questions I was supposed to ask you. I just zoomed into what you're saying. Because who does that? That's the truth. The way that you've handled this is so different and it's so beautiful. And your son stands for he's like in a niche, to be honest with you. So many young guys are just following the crowd, and he decided to be so different. And I'm so happy that his legacy is carried on through the work that you're doing.
Yeah, my son deserves that.
Well, he does, and I want to find out, with your foundation, what are you seeing with these young men? Why are they joining gangs in the first place? Why are they turning to knives and gun violence? What are your findings?
There's loads of different reasons. the first one, we got to start from the foundation. The foundation's your home. And the things that have impacted home is the society, how things have changed. We are younger, parents are younger. I started my family when Tracy said she was pregnant with Tanisa, Kyan's sister, when she was 17. So Tanisa came along when I was 18.
Yes.
Kyan came along when I was 21. I was a young dad. So I had a long journey of learning how to be a parent. We're not taught this.
Yes.
It's not a job we're taught. So if you've come up young and you haven't quite matured in your ways yet, and all of a sudden you've got this young kid that you need to depart all this knowledge and love and information to, how do you do that when you just began your journey yourself?
Yes,
So it's very difficult. So I'm not putting down parents and saying that, you know, we're doing a terrible job and the kids are like this because of parents. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if you look at the way that life has changed and society is different now, because of these things, it's impacted on our generation that are coming up now. So you'll find that parents are still kind of being quite young and childish as well. So kids are kind of like really in the parents' business. When I was growing up, you weren't. Kids mind your business and you don't get into grown-up business. So we didn't sit down and hear our mum running our dad, if they had problems in their relationship. That was their business and they dealt with it and they dealt with the kids, and you know, they had a different structure. You know, in marriage and relationships, there was a different structure. You know, you didn't find so much, you know, single parent families and stuff, you know, so that the household was more of a unit than it is now. So there's so many different things that impact on young people coming up now. That's why I'm mentioning these things, because as you come up as a young individual, you don't have this father figure. The young men need this, you know. Sometimes we underestimate the importance of having the man in the home. And women talk about, I've got to be the man and the mum in the house. No, you can't, because you're the mum. You can do 100% job as a mum, but you can only do 100% job as a mum. The same way as I can only do 100% job as a dad. I can't be a mum to my sons and a dad. The mum's got to do that job. Or a female role model needs to do that for my son in his life if he doesn't have his mum. So vice versa, if a young boy doesn't have his male figure as his dad there, he needs a male role model to show him and relate with him. So one of the fundamental things that's broken down for young men and our society is the male structure and the figure in the home. Then if we move over to the media, we move over to gameplays. When I was playing games, it was Atari. Dip, 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 dip. You move along, the ship comes down, bomb you shoot it, you move over here. That ain't gonna be messing with your mind. Now you've got Grand Theft Auto, GTA. Man's pretending he's pimping. He's busting shots all over the place. He's jumping in cars and robbing, dragging people out, stamping on people's face, blood everywhere. It's everything. It desensitizes you. And you have to wonder why the youths don't really, you know, care so much about life and value life. I also believe spirituality is kind of just thrown out the system. Who cares about God? We don't believe in this being. He's not real. We can't see him. Well, we can't see the wind, but we know it's real because we see the effects of the wind. And I see the effects of God in my life and other people's lives all the time. So we cannot denounce his reality just because we can't see him. And there's so many different areas, TV, films, music. You know, I didn't see all these chicks, you know, twerking, bumping and grinding, bodies flashing everywhere.
Isn't it?
You know,
there's just so much for
I didn't see it. There's so much, you know, girls now, they think it's all about the look, long hair, short skirts, bums sticking out, tits out. It's about adorning the inside, and I don't hear no one teaching the youths that.
And your foundation does just this,
right? That, and that's all we want to do. We want to tell kids the truth. We want to share with them the reality of knife crime. We want to share with them the reality of life, that success is having great relationships. It's about seeing your true potential and working really hard to achieve your goals. It's about respecting and loving everybody else, just like the way you like to be respected and loved. You know.
Before we run out out of time.
Yeah.
It's like, where can they find this information if they want to go and
Well,
find more about
to get a hold of myself and anybody else that we're trying to build and get on board the foundation, you go on www.kiyan.org. You can also Twitter me on Mark1Prince, or go on the Facebook on the same Mark1Prince.
Wonderful.
So you can contact us easily.
Mark, it's been amazing having you here on the show with us.
Been
I'm
great.
telling you, you've completely thrown us off. But it has been absolutely wonderful having you. And I just want to ask anyone who would like to get in contact with Mark, feel free to go to dkw.me. All his details will be there, so make sure you do contact him. And he's got an event coming up soon. He's saying
25th
too.
is Kyan's birthday on the 25th of November. We're trying to raise money for a minibus. We want people to buy the £15 standard tickets or buy the £50 VIP tickets. We've got some great guests, great comedy, great music, great food, and just great networking. Just everyone come together.
It's just going to be great. Thank you so much, Mark, for coming on the show. It's been wonderful having you.
Thank you so much.
And all the best with your foundation.
Thank you, I
we have to go
appreciate
for a quick break now, but afterwards we're going to be watching a very, very special video by Rebecca Johnson, the director of The Honey Trap. So please stay with us.
Uplifting. Diverse. Vibrant. Dynamic.
Powerful. Youthful. Informative.
Energizing. Passionate.
Motivational. Freedom. Lively.
Excitement.
Welcome back, and before the break we were speaking to Mark Prince about his amazing work with gangs, and now we're going to be taking a look at a video by Rebecca Johnson. Have a look at this.
Is your film based on the true story?
Yes, it is. I took that case that you're referring to as a starting point, and I did a lot of research into it and talked to a lot of people who are directly involved in one way or another. But I've also been working with young people in South London and particularly in Brixton for over a decade, making films with them. So when I started to realise that the actual case, using the actual case and sticking to facts, real names, etc., would be too constricting, both in terms of as a moral responsibility and also as a creative proposition. I had an awful lot of other material to draw from in terms of having worked with young people who've been involved in gang culture and drawn into scenarios of violence and in different ways as victims and perpetrators. So that was kind of what I could draw from in writing and in making the film. And I guess my kind of key thing that I have to say, and reason that I made this film, is that my insight that my work has given me has shown me that the young people that get involved in these kinds of situations, not just girls, boys, obviously a lot of the time it's boys, are not what we might believe just simply from reading about these stories in the papers and seeing these blank mugshots staring out at us. Very much there's a feeling that those stories elicit, which is kind of, oh my God, these children have lost their humanity. What has become of us, society, that our children are doing these things? And of course, the bare facts of these cases are horrific. But the far more tragic truth is that these are not feral children. These are not monsters. These are young people who are human beings with all the vulnerabilities and insecurities and desperation and confusion that comes along with that. And that is the tragedy. And that there are so many social factors that kind of create this environment where young people are being drawn into these kind of situations. But ultimately, all of this stuff would be preventable, you know, if the right sort of social structures were in place. These young people are not psychopaths. They were not born to kill.
What actually inspires you to get involved and start making films with these young people to empower them to tell their stories?
I actually just fell into it through a friend who was working with young people, and I did a project where I was doing film and drama with young people who didn't have places in schools, because for a long time now there's been a shortfall of school places. So there's a lot of young people, if their parents aren't middle class parents or push, they just don't end up in school at all, which is against, you know, European Human Rights Charter, but has been the case nevertheless in this country for a long time now. But anyway, I found that I really, really loved working with young people. I really connected with them and found them tremendously inspiring and touching and energising, and I really, really enjoyed it. And so then I set up my company, my not-for-profit company, Fierce Productions, and I started to run my own projects with young people.
Wow, so Rebecca does a lot of work with gangs in Brixton, and she's come up with this film, The Honey Trap. Kim, do you know more about it?
Yes. As you know, I'm from South London myself, so I heard a lot about this case when it was happening, and I saw a lot of the footage of what really happened, what they had on the bus when the young lady lured the young man to a particular spot where her boyfriend then killed him. But I think what was very interesting in this particular case, it was like everybody who was involved was some kind of a victim. The guy did the killing because of the home life he had. Where was the parents? The girl who was from particularly a good background, went to a nice school in South London. How did she get involved in it, and how she got lured? And also the young boy who got killed. It was like everybody in there was some kind of victim. But at the end of the day, a crime was committed, and people need to be held responsible for their actions.
This thing of responsibility, where do you think it really does lie? I mean, I know it's very easy to say family members, the family home. This is always the thing that comes up all the time. Oh, it's the family, it's the family. But is anyone else responsible?
I think family is only part of it, because there does get to a point where, you know, we do have to accept responsibility for our actions. And I'm very much a person where it's like, no, you haven't got an excuse, you know, but at the same time, I do accept that, you know, it can be hard. When you have to make a decision and stand by yourself that you're not going to get involved with gangs, then it's like, so then who else is protecting you?
Yes.
Who else has got your back? You know, and it's very hard as a young person to be able to stand alone. And back in our day, when we were at school, people fought with fists. You know, that was what a fight was. But today, that's not the case. It's not even just knives. It could be guns. So the pressures and the things that, you know, that there are for young people is so hard to make that decision.
To get out, you mean, once you're inside a gang?
Yeah, and to even sometimes just not even to get into it, but then sometimes what is the alternative? Because it's fine if you've all got, you know, good parents and a good background, but that parent can't hold your hand and take you to the bus stop and take you to school, you know, and be with you in all your lessons to help you with the pressure. So it is hard.
How did you get out? Go ahead, Melissa.
I know that we always say, okay, the responsibility lies with the home, but I just can't help but feel that a lot of it does, because a lot of the time when you look at these people and what they've done, like what you were saying, even the killer was a victim because of his home life and growing up, a lot of it does stem from a kind of upbringing or circumstances, things that have happened, some kind of parental neglect in a way, you know, because even my story, you know, the circumstances were unfortunate. You know, it was not anybody's fault that I had a father who had committed suicide and he wasn't, so I didn't have this father figure. And then other situations. So things do happen. And so it's kind of like you can't make everybody grow up in a perfect world.
Yes.
But when I think about myself, there were certain things I did do, but then there were certain things that I just knew I would not do. But that was also down to my upbringing, the morals that were instilled in me.
True.
And that is why I say that still, when you think about it, it still does boil down to the way, what is instilled in a person, in a young person. And I think that what Mark was saying earlier can be a lot to do with it, you know, young people bringing up children.
Yes.
Young people bringing up young people. I definitely think that's just a big issue.
Kim, as a mother, are you ever afraid that your son will join a gang, or has he ever been in a gang?
Well, you see, my view is a little bit different because I'm the parent.
Yes.
These children are from my generation,
Yes.
whether they're the offspring of my generation. Now, your question about my son joining a gang. Now, for me, since my child was very small, my son, both of them, I've always told them, I said, look, if you get into any trouble, don't let me be your first phone call. Don't call me. If you end up in prison, don't call me. I said, I'm bringing you up in the right way. I'm fighting, I'm working hard. I instill the morals into him. But I said, but if you go down that route, don't call me. I try to teach them to come home straight from school. Trying to teach them, even when we're watching programs, I would tell them, that's not right, that's wrong. And I know there's a lot of parents from my generation who the previous generation didn't help them either. My generations were the ones that, okay, sorry to say this, but you know, let's have children to get council flats. That's my generation. These are the people of my age group, and that did happen. Whereas the previous generation before were the people who came across, the immigrants.
Yes.
And their morals were a lot different, as like what Mark was saying, you know, you didn't get involved in your parents' business, children were children. But then, even though that happened, it was the children of the immigrants that have turned around and made this generation.
So you're confident, so far your son is doing well, and you're confident that he's going to stay out of a gang?
I can't be confident, but the thing is, we don't grow in. I don't live in an area that has gangs. I'm not saying I live in a posh area. No, I don't. But I don't live in an area with gangs. And it's strange, where my son's school is, there is no schools in that vicinity. So I made sure I took time to choose a school
to safeguard him.
Yeah, and sometimes doing these things are really quite difficult. You have to take time. You need to think about it. You know, and sometimes not all parents do this. Sometimes the parents themselves need help parenting.
Gosh, we're going to be discussing this more straight after this break. Very, very deep topic. Let's get deeper into it after this.
mother suffering from a troubled past, then don't lose hope. There's always someone you can turn to. We understand. With all the challenges of everyday life, the financial responsibility, and the pressure of being a single parent, life can be overwhelming at times. Single parents and their children can flourish, but without the right support, a family can fall apart. The Tamar Group is there for lone parents who need guidance, support, and encouragement to get them through their everyday battles. Whether it's a group discussion, a mother and child bonding session, or some personal advice, we are here for you. Everyone needs a helping hand at one point or another. Let us be yours. For more information on our meetings and where the nearest Tamar Group is to you, then visit our website uckg.org/Tamar or give us a call on 020 7686 6000.
Welcome back to DKW, and we've been discussing the topic of getting out of the ghetto, and it has been a very deep topic indeed. So ladies, what's your final thoughts on it?
Well, I think that sometimes there's like 110 marks against some young people before they've even put a foot wrong.
Yeah.
And, you know, the negative appearance or, you know, that's put in there in the media sometimes often throws people off already. I know, for example, one of my little brothers, he's tall, he's big, but his nickname is Brown Bear because he's soft. You know, that's from his friends. You know,
sweet.
because he looks, you know, he looks like he could be intimidating, and believe me, don't take him for a fool, because if you're gonna try anything, he will stand up for himself. But the amount of times that he has then been stopped by the police, you know, when he's going about his business and things like that, you know, and has seen people like, you know, that have looked at him and been like, you know, ugh, because they've got in their mind the negative connotations that are already out there. And we know that there are some people that do spoil it for others. So unfortunately, it is something that they're battling against. But the problem is that instead of finding ways to help them and resolve it, there's nothing out there for some young people. There's nothing out there for them. Even prison, which is supposed to be, you know, really supposed to be rehabilitation. You know, where is that happening? Because the stories that we hear is that they can get drugs just as easily. They can have knives. You know, they can carry on these gang wars inside the prison. So nothing stops. So the minute they come back out, it's a badge of honor, back on the streets. Yeah, I've been it, they couldn't stop me, and blah, 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 and carried on. So what is it actually that more people are doing? You know, things like that Mark was speaking about, you know, there isn't that much out there, and this is the problem. There needs to be more initiatives, like he was saying. And one thing that he was saying that was key was that it's not just a job. When the youth people, you know, because they're not stupid. I'm sure each generation comes up quicker. Like my 2-year-old nephew, I think, is just like a genius almost, you know. But it's like, they're not stupid. So they know if somebody is looking out for them because they care what happens to them, or whether it's like, yep, I've checked on this one today, I've checked on that one today, they're okay. What are they actually doing? Do they care about the actual future of them? And then what is actually happening out there for them?
Lots of questions, just loads of question marks, isn't it? Because even I'm sitting here thinking, okay, they're like, Mark, his foundation's out there, but do people know about it? Maybe there are things out there, but there's not enough promotion. We just keep hearing this negative things. Mel, what about you? What's your take on things?
I agree with what Lisa said. I think there is just not enough promotion of things, and I believe that there are people out there trying to do things, but it's them getting exposure, promoting themselves. Just trying to, because it is a difficult situation, because how much can you do? How much can a stranger do for somebody? Do you know what I mean? So it can be a tricky situation, but I do think that there needs to be more promotion of what is already out there. There probably does need to be actually more out there to be done for these people, for these young people. It's hard, isn't it? It's really difficult.
Kim, in your experience, what can be done?
There is as Melissa said, there's a lot that is going out there and a lot that people are not aware about. But sometimes it has to come back to the individual. How does the individual see crime? How does the individual think, how can I get out of it? And it's being able to try and reach the person on an individual level. We heard a lot about it's all about the passion. The young people know if it's a job, people are ticking boxes, which is quite true. But I believe that the person has to know that the person really cares about them and really wants to help them get out of the situation.
Can I say, do you think that, because I know you were saying earlier, Kim, it was all about the different influences that each generation has had. Do you think that as well, kind of, so it'd be your generation, the distrust of the police has kind of like helped that, because then they pass that down, and so it's like almost a badge of honour to like disrespect the police. So do you think that has helped then push this?
I think with the generations before us, we used to see like our parents being badly treated by and not really doing much. And so when our generation came about, we were like, no, we're not having this. And that kind of lack of respect started to happen. And there was genuine incidents that where the police did mistreat. And growing up in, I mean, it's slightly off topic a little bit, but growing up when I was in school, it was nothing for people to say or use something racist to your face. That happened a lot. But now that doesn't happen so much, but it doesn't mean that the problem has gone away. It's kind of just gone underground, and so people always feel like, you know, we have to fight the system. I'm not going to have no one. It's all about don't disrespect me. And if you listen to a lot of young people talk, it's all about do not disrespect me. We're not tolerating the disrespect. But what happens is that it all goes towards one side. You're all about not disrespect, but then they lose respect, and they kind of start to lose the moral high ground because they're so fighting this situation.
Do you think, I'm going to ask this to Mel because obviously you were in a gang, I remember very well, but do you think a lot of these youths that come across very aggressive and, you know, they go out there like very defensive are actually very soft and looking for love?
If I'm honest with you, I can't speak for every single youth, but I definitely think, you know, to be honest with you, nobody's really born a monster, and people don't grow up with a vision, an ambition of going out there, committing, you know, doing bad things, destroying the lives of others. You know, there is something that happens along the way that kind of, you know, makes you lose that moral high ground and, you know, takes away certain things, and your judgment is distorted in a way. And a lot of the time, there is a root, and there's something lacking there. And sometimes when you hear individual stories, it's really, when you hear what people have been through, it can be really, really intense, you know, really bad situations that they've been through, and that doesn't justify it. But then that is what makes them put up this kind of front and appear as a monster, but really because they wanted or want something that they didn't have.
Can I ask, because obviously you're sitting here, very elegant, articulate, well-spoken, how did you get out of the gang?
Well, for me, to be honest, like I said before earlier, there were certain things that I would not do because of the morals that were instilled in me when I was younger, even though what happened later on in life didn't work in my favour, etc. But to be honest with you, when I had a lot of family problems at the time, and that was like the root of all of this, and I started to see a positive change in certain members of my family to begin with, and that one of my siblings actually was attending a youth. It was a local youth group, and the young people there were really positive, and I could see that many of them had, you know, stories maybe similar to mine, some even worse, but they were able to get out of that. They were able, because they had this support network, they had, you know, they had positivity around them. They were able to change their way of thinking, their mentality, you know, they now had ambition, positive ambitions. And really, I think the heart of everybody wants that. Everybody wants to be happy. And that's the truth. And for me, I thought, I do want to be happy. I want to be at peace. Because even though I was doing all these things and I was you know, my friends and I would laugh about it and joke about it and take stupid gang pictures and stuff like that. I knew in myself, when I was at home at night, I knew within myself I wasn't actually happy. And I wanted to be happy.
Yes.
And seeing that, it kind of made me realise that if they can make a change, so can I.
Yes.
And that was what helped me to change. And I got involved with this same youth group, with these positive people, and seeing their examples and having that kind of leadership, it encouraged me. And here I am today.
Can I get some concluding thoughts?
Can I just
Go
ask
ahead.
Mel a question? So you think deep down inside, most people who are in these kind of situations, they want a way out, but they don't know where to find it?
I definitely believe that. I definitely believe that they want a way out. But it's sometimes, as somebody said earlier, it can be so hard to get out. And it's like, if you don't know about what's out there, where do you go?
Indeed.
What do you do? How can you get out? That's the thing.
Working now at my new workplace, and I'm working with a lot of social rented people with social rented issues, and just now coming into like some of the gang culture and things like that. And one of the things that people are saying is that the gangs have something on somebody, which is the fear than what keeps them.
Fear.
So sometimes it could be a sexual abuse, as in they have forced someone to do something, or someone has done something sexual to them and have it on tape. And that way it can be used to blackmail people. So it's like, for them to get out, as well as not knowing, it's the fear of what will happen if they do get out. You know, it's very hard.
Wow, so it's very, very, I mean, we could have a part 2 on this show. It's so deep, but unfortunately we're running out of time, ladies. I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's been really, really wonderful. And we'll discuss this again in another program, I'm sure. I would like to focus on my conclusion on the young person that is watching right now. Maybe you or someone that you know is in a gang and is fighting to find this way out. One thing I want to tell you, and maybe you're not in a gang, but you're just a young person, is that everyone wants your attention. Everyone is fighting for you. You are at that impressionable age where everyone wants to get your attention. All the shops, all the designers, even fellow gang members, they understand the value you have being a young person. And indeed, you do have this amazing value. What you decide at this time can shape the rest of your life. Look how precious you are. You must never forget that. And if you're fighting to get out, if you want to be like Melissa and get out and get the support she did, please go to our website at dkw.me, where we will have all the details of Mark's Foundation and this youth group that Melissa joined, as well as other supporting networks. We want to help you as much as we can. We don't have all the answers, but I believe that one step can make a great difference for you. Thank you so much for joining us on this show. We'll see you next week, and we'll keep you with another inspirational video. Have a look at this. Bye-bye.
Up until college, I got bullied all the time. And then when I got to college, I decided enough was enough, and I changed myself. It wasn't who I was, because I was always the quiet one, the good one, doing the work, good grades. I wasn't dumb or anything, I was very intelligent. But because I got involved with the wrong crowd, I started trying to be like them because I wanted to have friends, I wanted to be popular. So I turned into a bully into college, and that resulted in me failing my first year of college, and I got kicked out. So I had to move to a different college and start all over again. So things weren't exactly going to plan. I would pretend I was happy, that I had everything, but when I got home it would be a different matter. Me and my mum used to fight because she drinks a lot, she used to drink a lot. So she was abusive, like she would shout at me, swear at me, call me names, say like your disappointment, all these things. When I was 12, my mum was going out with this guy and he was like drinking as well, so they would always fight. He would even threaten to beat me up as well, and he was twice the height of me. And inside I just wanted to cry, but I had to grow up quite fast to be strong for my mum. My friend invited me to come to the youth group. Everyone was so welcoming, like the group that I was in, they got me involved straight away, even though I didn't have a clue what was going on. They was like, come, join in and everything. Everyone was really nice, and I don't know, they didn't seem fake like people outside. They seemed genuine to see me, even though they didn't know who I was. And now I'm actually in a position myself to help others, which is, I don't know why, but ever since I was little, that's just been my thing, to help others. And now I can actually do it, but not just silly little advice, like proper help people. So everything's just completely different. Like, I'm a happy person from inside out. It's not a mask, it's not a face. Everything you see is just me.